Charles Taze Russell. And just for anybody listening to my videos, I like to just do it off the top of my head. It feels more natural. I didn't really do no research or anything about this. I just like to talk from what I know already. But I plan on delving into a lot of the history that I should have delved into while I was a witness. But I was, when you're in a cult, and I know that might offend some people, but when you're in a cult, you don't have any time. With the Jehovah's Witnesses, they take up so much of your time, and you're so full of anxiety that everything is a task. I know even if you will go to the park, you still have all these thoughts in the back of your mind. You can't enjoy the moment. You can't enjoy no moment. You're constantly grinding your teeth, just full of anxiety. You might have a talk on the school that week. You might have your hours. You might have auxiliary pioneer, and then it's at the end of the month, and you need those last few hours. So now you got to spend all night writing letters. You might be thinking about your future and what have become of it, because you done spent your whole life dedicated to this organization, and you just like on a hamster wheel. You might be in school and you're getting bullied and teased for being a Jehovah's Witness, So you don't have time to read The Millennial Dawn. I think that was a book that Charles Taze Russell, he might have made. I think he made a few volumes of those, or the old newspapers that he was, he sold. He had his, I think he had a section in the newspaper that, was disseminated to millions of people. And you didn't have time to watch the I think Charles Taze Russell and the witnesses in his time, they made the first color film. I want to say it was the Color Sum of Creation. It was Technicolor or something like that. So of course he accomplished a lot of things, but and another thing about Charles Taze Russell, I know from the videos that the witnesses produced, was that, I think he was worth like $7 million. And this was in the late 1800s. So he had a lot of money, and they made claims that he converted that money to start up the witnesses. Now, I don't know how true that is, but it was always under the assumption that he used that money and just donated it. But if you really think about it, he probably doubled his money. That's a speculation, but think about it. They were selling the publications at the time. So, and, he was bringing in a lot of people into what was called, I guess, maybe at that time, the truth, which it really wasn't. And I heard rumors that he was a Freemason. I think it's documented that he was a Freemason. And I also seen some recently, and I heard a lot about it, that he was obsessed with the Great Pyramids in Giza. And I think it was the Great Pyramid, and he was obsessed with the dimensions of the pyramid because he thought that the dimensions of the pyramid would predict the time of the end, which has nothing to do with the Bible. So that's kind of scary when you think about that. A person like this who was a Freemason started the Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's the reason why we call it the Hall, because Freemasons called their places of, I don't think Freemasons view themselves as a religion, but the places they meet, they call it halls, so we call it the Kingdom Hall. And if you really think about it, Jehovah's Witnesses always talk about paganism, but Charles Taze Russell was obsessed with pyramids, which the Egyptians was magic practicing priests according to the Bible. And it was into magic and the occult. I mean, when you think of the occult, the first group of people you think about is the Egyptians, or are the Egyptians. So it just it's crazy when you think about that. And maybe he was genuine. Maybe he did want to understand the Bible more, but he was the president, and it moved on to Brother Rutherford, Brother Noor, and then I think Brother Franz was the last president, and then it became more of like just a governing body, a group of people that make up a governing body rather than a president. So when you really just look at it from that, just a simple look at it, You could tell their claim that they're guided by Holy Spirit isn't so, because they're running the organization just like what it sounds like, an organization, like a for-profit organization. Even Brother Rutherford, who came after Charles Taze Russell, said, advertise, advertise, advertise the king and his kingdom. I think that's the quote, in Cedar Point, Ohio, in 1922 or something like that. And he was a lawyer, I think, but just the whole thing of advertise, it doesn't sound spiritual, doesn't it? It sounds like a business, like you're trying to advertise publications to be sold. And they made big claims. You know, if you're watching the advertisement, think about when you're watching a commercial. Every commercial makes big claims. Like, it could be a pill for depression. They're acting like the pill is going to solve your depression. But when you hear the side effects, it might increase your depression, depression. So they was making claims that the end was going to come. This is the only truth, all sorts of claims. And they all turned out to be false. And it all started with this guy, Charles Taze Russell. And a lot of people say, well, he didn't start it because it's God's organization. He just was the representative. Nah, we didn't had enough time. What, Jehovah's Witnesses was officially established, in 1879 or something like that? It's enough time then passed, and all these claims. How many more promises are going to go unfulfilled before you just come to the brutal realization that it's just a man-made organization? And they did a good job pulling the wool over everybody's eyes.